welcome to Babu's Frickin' Podcast. Thanks for joining us in our non-toxic Star Wars adventure in a galaxy far, far away. As always, I am Mike Chiatti Ruby, joined on the Jedi Council by the dancing machine Grand Moff Mark Valentine, back from the shores of Nur in the Mustafar system on vacation. Mark, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello there. So good to be reunited.
So much to catch up on, and joining us as well, holding down the fort, Brian Joe Yao-Zali. He is one with the Force, and the Force was with him on the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're pulling for the Avalanche tomorrow. How are you hanging in there? Are you meditating calmly, or are you leaning towards your Sith tendencies?
My wife sat next to me with 6 minutes left in the game, and then the Lightning scored. So my wife made the connection on her own that she feels responsible that the Avalanche lost. And I wanted to make it clear to her that I want her to watch with me, but she needs to sit down at the beginning of the first period and not move.
Oh, you got a Silver Linings playbook thing going on there.
100%. Yeah. Well, I went to game 4, and that game was legit. That was so much fun, so much drama, and I jumped out of my seat thinking the goal was scored, and then all of a sudden nobody moved, and maybe the goal wasn't scored. Oh wait, the goal was scored. So if I find a way back into that building for game 6 tomorrow, just know that I am filing for bankruptcy.
There's some bad juju in the Lee household. What's going on?
Listen, man, you can just go.
She made the connection on her own. I want to make it clear. My wife was the superstitious one here.
We'll just go full on Office. I declare bankruptcy.
Exactly.
That's not how it works, Michael.
You could just, light some stuff on fire and like wave smoke around the house.
Yumma,
Yeah.
yumma,
Yumma.
Thank you both for recording this ahead of time. So if we're not reacting to your live YouTube comments, that's because we are recording this a night before it is premiering.
We also couldn't wait to talk about the finale of Obi Wan Kenobi.
100%.
6-episode television event in the books. In many respects, it was everything that we thought the finale was going to be in terms of how they had to wrap things up. And at the same time, there were just some spectacular Star Wars moments. Dying to get into it with you guys. Yes, Mark.
But first, we have breaking Babu Frick news. Mike, have you seen this?
Have I seen what?
You too can own a Babu Frick. That's right. Babu Frick has come to Batu. So you can buy the Droid Smith over at Galaxy's Edge. It's a fully articulated Babu Frick toy at the Droid Depot. It's $60, and you can take home the hey for you and the kiddies.
Why do I have the feeling I've brought home another pathetic life form?
Yeah, who doesn't want a $60 Babu Frick? Is
my
anyone
wife
getting it here? Is anyone getting it?
I have a strong feeling in the Force that if I were to return home with a $60 whiskered Babu Frick, that I might be sleeping in the shed where I am speaking to you from right now.
Okay, so what would your wife say if it just showed up on your doorstep, unbeknownst to you, that you're like, Mark? Like, what would she like? Would she come after me? Would you still be in trouble? Like, if this thing just shows up at your doorstep, like, what's gonna happen?
Just say it was me. She doesn't know me.
Yeah.
There we go. Honey, it was Brian. It was Brian. What you can't find him. Mark, you can stalk him. You can't find Brian.
I feel like I'm gonna be. Sarah might put me in like one of the interrogation machines and like use the Force on me until I gave up Brian's location. So I'm just saying,
me everything.
There might be a Babu Frick that arrives at your house.
I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it. My 6-year-old daughter might have nightmares, but I'm all about it.
Yeah, just hide it. It's kind of freaky. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you go online and you look at it, it's kind of freaky.
Well, I mean, as Brian and I talked about last week, we missed this in our celebration recap. So, Mark, Babu Frick has been confirmed for Mandalorian season 3.
I saw that. We actually talked about it over on Chip and Company's Entertainment and Review podcast this week. I started podcasting over there with those guys and talking Disney news and parks. And they asked me, as the foremost authority on Star Wars, what I thought of our namesake being a part of the next intellectual property. And I plugged us, gentlemen, of course.
Well, thank you for repping the podcast. And I mean, and let's be honest, anyone who drops $60 on a Babu Frick action figure, is most certainly a resident authority. Like you've earned that by hook, by crook, and by credit card.
Well, I haven't done so yet, but I will be very tempted that if that little cute, adorable Babu Frick is in Batu at the same time as me, there's a very good chance that he's getting mailed home. We don't.
You can't be held responsible.
I can't. He's not going to fly home with us, but we mail things home from Disney, and there's a good chance he's going to be flying home.
Right now, he to me is just a $180 price tag because I got to buy 3 of them at this point. One for all.
Bella would not want him, much like Mike's daughter would not want Babu Frick around. Bella will not want Babu Frick around, so he's probably going to be somewhere here in the studio.
I just love the idea of like going in to wake up my kids before school in the morning and just like having him like 3 inches in their face and going, "Hey!"
Now he's definitely going to your house.
Well, dude, I mean, think of it as a $60 down payment towards everything we're gonna have to put towards therapy after they're woken up by Babu Frick every morning.
Tell me about your father. My dad used to wake me up every morning by terrorizing me with a 6-inch doll.
What did he do to you? It was Babu Frick. Is that like the what's that horror movie? The Babu.
Oh, Baba Yaga?
No,
Yaga.
there's Baba Yaga, but there's Babadook.
Oh, Marmaduke.
No, not Marmaduke.
Babadook. Yeah, the Babadook. Which
is that what it's called?
Yeah, there's the Babadook. Yeah.
That is a messed up movie.
Yeah.
That ultimately does not follow through.
Yeah, there it is. The Babadook.
Dude,
wow.
I
did not expect that to happen in the first 10 minutes of this show.
Yeah.
Tony Collette and the Babadook, man. Check it out.
Who would have thought it?
Speaking of checking it out, the weekly plug, if you like what you hear, including the random terrorization of our children with Babu Frick dolls, please like, subscribe, share. You too can be treated to this insanity every 2 weeks everywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast.
And this show is, after all, endorsed and fully sponsored by the Babadook, courtesy of Netflix
and the Nerd Life Network.
So, guys,
let's get into Obi Wan.
Episode 6. We can start anywhere, but I feel like we would be foolish not to start with the duel. It is Obi Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader 4. This is, I guess technically it'd be 3 out of the 4 duels that they have. So this is round 3.
Does 2 really count as a duel, though? Like, I would call this part 2, and the other.
Well, I don't know. I'd count it. I'd say round 1 is a 12 round fight on Mustafar. With a 12th round knockout at the last second, with Obi Wan Kenobi coming away with the win. I would say round 2 is the 2 of them meeting up in episode 3, and I would say that it is a resounding TKO in favor of Darth Vader. And then I would say that this is round 3 and another resounding victory for Obi Wan Kenobi.
Fair enough.
Towel thrown in on the side of the Sith, and round 4 takes place on the Death Star, and Obi-Wan throws in the towel there as he gets a lightsaber through the cloak.
So it's 2-2. All right, I'll take it.
I concur. I like
so
it.
guys, did this live up to the hype? Did this duel and everything that played out is this what you guys wanted?
It did, and let's face it, that this is what I think all of us wanted from this series. The millisecond that we heard that Hayden Christensen was returning and reprising his role as Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader, this is what we all wanted. This is all what we had waited for this show. It wasn't a big surprise that the finale was going to have some kind of epic clash between the two former Jedi and the two former brothers, and it didn't disappoint. In an interest, I mean, I'm sure that we'll talk about this a little bit, but interesting style choice to intersplice this scene in this duel with Reva chasing down a young Luke Skywalker on Tatooine to break it up. But the duel was everything that we had wanted and more. Seeing Obi Wan Kenobi go into his Clone Wars stance one more time, to see him get his mojo back and to conquer his fear and to go after Darth Vader was pretty amazing to watch. I love the locale. I liked how dimly lit it was. I liked the silhouette of the mountains and the crescent moon that was over Darth Vader. I just love that shot. It was a beautiful shot. Darth Vader, in the words of or to take a page out of Braveheart, Mike, should have remembered the rocks. Should have remembered the rocks. So good stuff. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it, but Brian, I'll get off my soapbox for a second because I don't want to hog all the time here because I have a lot to say about it. I'm sure that we'll keep talking.
Yeah. I mean, the concept art, we talked about it last week, showed that it was happening on some sort of lava planet. I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm glad they changed the locale of the fight. I think that the planet they were on made it really cool. Mike, you shared with us a video of somebody putting the episode 3 music around this duel, and it was 9.5 minutes long, straight of just Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fighting. I think it had a lot more drama to it when we weren't intersplicing the storyline I wasn't near as interested in, except for the fact that Beru's a total bad A, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah,
but
we're going to come back to that.
Everything around Obi-Wan and Vader, Mike, we were wrong. We said we weren't sure that they were going to fight. They absolutely did. And I'm glad Roken and the crew didn't go to Tatooine, so we're happy about that. But when it comes to the duel specifically, I think it was brilliantly done to see things that we hadn't seen the Force do before, of literally creating the high ground. Was a lot of fun, but Obi-Wan getting his groove back, doing everything that he could. And we thought that Hayden Christensen being cast in this series had paid off last week with the simple flashback. Hayden Christensen's face being on display through that helmet, similar how it was when Ahsoka cut Vader's helmet open at the end of season 2 of Rebels, and the brilliance of the voice modulator going in and out, where you get Hayden Christensen's voice mixed with James Earl Jones's voice. Absolutely brilliant. Not only my favorite episode of the series for sure, but it's one of I would put it in my top Disney Plus Star Wars episodes. Certainly my favorite finale Disney Plus has done, Marvel or Star Wars.
Even more so than Mandalorian season 2, episode 6, more than the Return of Luke Skywalker.
I actually have a lot of problems with season 2, episode 8 of Mandalorian.
Episode 8, excuse me.
The Return of Luke Skywalker, obviously brilliant, but I think a lot of that episode, Moff Gideon is a completely different character than he is throughout the entire arc of the rest of the series. There's a few things that I just don't love, but honestly, the Ahsoka episode in season 2 is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian. So even if we're just going to go that season, I would go with the Ahsoka episode. So it's a bit on a technicality. Obviously, the Return of Luke Skywalker is a massive deal, but
yeah,
the first time Marvel or Star Wars, the finale was the strongest episode of a series for me, and I was happy about that.
I think that's fair. I loved everything about the Obi-Wan Vader stuff in this episode. We'll come back to Reva in a minute, which I didn't dislike, but had some issues with nonetheless. We have never seen Obi-Wan Kenobi this strong in the Force.
We haven't.
It was amazing to see him hurling boulders at Darth Vader. to see him dueling and not holding back. I mean, it's incredible to see that these guys are both each other's weaknesses. Darth Vader has no problem killing any Jedi gleefully. He can't get the job done against Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan can beat Anakin / Vader, but he can't finish him. It's kind of remarkable how the two of them kind of come up short here. I loved how strong Obi-Wan was. I loved that we saw force abilities from him that we hadn't seen before. I loved how they used the environment around them. They used the boulders. I loved the sparse dialogue. Again, they've just nailed Darth Vader so well. All of his hubris, all of his vanity, all of his strength, like all of his line about your strength is returned, but the weakness still remains. And then he opens up a crack in the ground and drives him in, but he still just assumes that he killed him and he walks away like, oh, I buried in you in rocks. I'm just assuming you're dead, and just doesn't take the time and walks away just so that Obi-Wan can come back because they, you say it all the time, Brokeback Mountain style, like, I just can't quit you. They can't strike the final blow. The big difference, which I thought this amazingly pointed out, was that the first time anyone actually tries to make a killing stroke is in A New Hope when Vader swings through Obi-Wan.
You don't see it as a killing stroke when he literally dives and cuts his helmet open? Do you think the whole plan was just to reveal who was underneath?
I don't think he was trying to kill him.
Okay.
If he wanted to kill him, he would have killed him. I mean, it was a very, and I think it's very circular. I think Bane in a lot of ways in Batman is a throwback to Vader.
Right.
But the fight and the way that he took down the breathing apparatus and the way that the voice came in and out and like the struggling breathing, this fight at the end gave me a very strong feeling of Dark Knight Rises when Batman knocks out the breathing apparatus on Bane. It felt very much like that. And Obi-Wan could have killed him, but instead he turns it around and bashes him with the butt of his lightsaber. If he wanted him dead, right, he would have kept his lightsaber exactly what it was, and he would have slashed. Right? And yeah, he took down part of the helmet, but I'm going to quote another franchise. He should have gone for the head. If he really wanted him dead, he would have beheaded him. I don't think he wanted to kill him, and I think that it was only when he was unmasked and Vader says to him, Anakin is gone. I killed him.
You didn't.
And he finally and he calls him Darth, that he truly writes off his friend. And even then he can't kill him. And even then, like, sorry, but what a schmuck, Obi-Wan. He's stronger than he was the last time you left him. You're going to leave him there to go massacre how many more Jedi because you can't bring yourself to kill him?
Well, I'm going to I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on that point. And I think he leaves him because I think at that point he's beaten him twice. He's beaten him as Anakin when I think he was stronger as Anakin Skywalker in some regards. He was a better duelist as Anakin Skywalker. Much better. This time around, Obi-Wan bests him in the Force because I saw such a great YouTube breaking down how physically limited Darth Vader was.
Yes.
And that because of the cybernetics, and they went into Legends and they talked about how the Emperor intentionally gave him older cybernetics and stuff that was not really great and up to date and useful. That Darth Vader is quite literally fighting with outdated technology in the cybernetics that he has underneath that cloak and under that suit. And he can't even move. He can't raise his arms up. So from a dueling standpoint, he could not fight the way that Anakin Skywalker fought. So what this came down to in the end was not a test of blades in as much as a test of the Force. And he loses that battle too. So I think when Obi-Wan bests him that way, which is all Vader has left at this point, I think he looks at Vader and says, this person is really not a threat to me. And I think that's why he leaves. I don't understand too I thought, why doesn't he finish him? But at that point, I think he pities him and he's looking at him a crumpled mess. And even though Vader says, like, don't feel guilty, like, this is I killed Anakin, you didn't. I still think that Obi-Wan still feels a tremendous amount of guilt for his friend. And he pities his former friend and what he's become. And I don't think he can bring himself to do it because, one, I don't think he sees Vader as a threat anymore, the way that he did when he first met him. But also, I think he really feels bad for what Anakin has become. And I think he's just going to leave Anakin to be tortured because he's no longer tortured. You can see that at the end of this, he's let go. Vader's going to be the one that's going to harbor these feelings now for the rest of his natural life. And
I know, but
as we know, he does.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, he's Obi-Wan's weakness, like I said a couple of minutes ago, but it's still Obi-Wan's selfishness about his inability to protect the galaxy. Like, how many more people are going to die at the hands of Darth Vader over the next decade?
But that's where, dude, and that's where there's just such a great discussion to be had about the failings of the Jedi. That's the imperfection of the Jedi is that's their hubris. That's their lack of foresight for all of this, for all of the foresight that they have. They never put it to use. Never. They didn't. When the Sith were rising, they never spring to action. They never do anything decisive. And people who study the Force more so than us will say, well, Mark, but that's the whole nature of the Force is to not force the issue and to not take action and course correct. What the Force wills is what the Force is going to will. And that's kind of what I think Obi-Wan does here is he says what the Force will have of this man is going to happen. Like, it's not going to be by my blade. It's not going to be by my hand. I truly think he leaves Vader's legacy and he leaves the rest of the story up to the Force and to the living Force and to the natural order of things. It's maddening. It drives me crazy too. But I think that's one of the tenets of the Jedi that also causes them to fail time and time again is I think they put a lot of faith into the Force and trust that it will course correct.
So, Brian, you brought up a line a minute ago that I really have been wanting to ask you guys about. So, Obi-Wan says, I'm sorry, Anakin, I'm sorry for everything. And Anakin tries to absolve him of the guilt by saying, I'm not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin. I did. And now, granted, and there's amazing lighting where it's blue on his face and then it goes to red, reflecting his shift from Jedi to Sith. And he looks crazy. He looks absolutely batty when he says it to him. The first time I watched it, though, I didn't take it as I'm the devil, I killed him. I took it as Anakin taking ownership.
Correct.
For what had happened and saying,
stating his regret without stating it.
Yeah, like, you didn't kill him. It's not that Darth Vader is this alternate thing that took him. Like, it was actually Anakin saying, no, this was my choice. I did this. It is my fault for better or for worse. How did you take it, Brian? Did you take it as like, no, this is the devil and this is who I am and I took over? Or is it, do you believe actually Anakin, the sort of, once good person saying, I may not be right for it, but I killed off who that person was?
That's how I see it. I see it as Anakin coming through and basically stating his regret a little bit better than Dwight Schrute of I state my regret. But it was basically him saying, hey, you didn't do this. And it's absolving Obi-Wan of anything. And this is where I am really happy when stuff like this happens, because sometimes you handcuff a show like this because it needs to hold on to particular parts of canon. This is where it pays off, where from a certain point of view, he did kill your father. This is where Obi-Wan is able to connect those dots and basically say, I didn't do it. He did it to himself. Darth Vader killed Anakin because he told me so. And for him, not only willing to, what's surprising, and obviously they couldn't do this, but what would be interesting is if the story was going forward from here, would Obi-Wan have it and tried instead to you're still in there. Why don't you just come back? Rather than just saying, okay, well, you're gone. See you later, Darth. Like, I would have been interested potentially to see Obi-Wan try to bring Anakin back and what Anakin would have done at that point in time. Obviously, we couldn't do that, nor would it have worked. But I would see Obi-Wan trying to kind of reach out for a last chance, but you can see the weight come off, and this is where it was brilliantly acted by both Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan. You can see the weight lifted off of Obi-Wan's shoulders and placed directly on Anakin's shoulders, where he's now taking full responsibility for what he did, like you said, for better or for worse. But I do feel like that was Anakin Skywalker there for the last time that we see until the end of Return of the Jedi.
But to your point about like Obi-Wan trying to make a play to bring him back, I don't think with everything Obi-Wan's seen that he can do that. I think Luke has the benefit of being Virgin Snow in that regard. Like, yes, he's seen Vader do awful things and he's known that he's always been the enemy of the rebellion, but he's still his dad, right? And he hasn't seen the atrocities firsthand, whereas Obi-Wan saw Vader kill off all of his friends, lead all of these people to massacre even more Jedi, and then he saw him kill innocents. Like, it's what Mark and I said after after Episode 3. Darth Vader is irredeemable forever. It doesn't matter that he helps Luke at the end there. He is still forever a heinous individual, and nothing can ever forgive that after seeing him mercilessly, wantonly, kill anyone just to reach his ends.
This episode does a really nice job of showing the conflict, though, that lives within Anakin Skywalker. And I love the scene that they had where him and Palpatine are talking about, everything that basically has just played out, and how Palpatine, like, right then and there, like, Luke's not even in the picture, but he can sense that Vader is compromised. He can sense that there's still a connection, that Anakin Skywalker, although he says he's dead and I killed him and he's gone, Palpatine knows better. Like, the guy can literally read minds. He can reach into Anakin Skywalker's feelings and know, he can read Vader's mind and know that he is very conflicted. I think Anakin is filled with regret of everything that's happened. But I think at this point, he's just so far into it that he's embraced it at this point.
Could say that his hate led to suffering.
Well, have you seen those memes where they've taken pictures of boy, Padawan, Jedi, and Vader, and it's, they have fear, anger, hate, suffering tied to each of those pictures. So there's fear when he was a boy. There's anger when he's the Padawan. There's hate, when he I hate you, he yells at Obi-Wan, and ultimately that all leads to suffering when he's Vader.
Yeah, I mean, it's great when all of the philosophy works together with all the stuff that's happening in canon. Yeah. I think that this episode was pitch perfect. It gave us exactly what we wanted. The other element that I just want to talk about, if at all brief, gentlemen, is that we've all been wondering and hoping that whatever transpires throughout the course of this does not mess with canon in a way that we then have to explain away dialogue in following movies. There's no mental gymnastics that has to happen here. That this matches very well with what we're going to get in A New Hope. When last they met, he's still as powerful as Darth Vader is and Anakin Skywalker is. He is still the learner, and he is still the lackey in so many ways when it comes to his knowledge of the Force and his ability to use the Force in order to best Obi Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan shows him up in almost every single way in this fight, and it makes that line work. It doesn't have to be, and we were so worried that it was going to ruin Mustafar and it was going to basically now do something with episode 3, and now we were going to have to like find a way to make this work. everything still works. And if nothing more, this scene now makes the battle on the Death Star that much more poignant for me.
I think it makes everything better. I felt like that this one, it helps clarify all of Obi-Wan. One, Brian, as you said, it helps clarify. He betrayed and murdered your father in a really interesting way. I think it finally explains how Obi-Wan really knew he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. If they hadn't have had something in between where they truly met up and he got to see what was there, he would have never known.
Because he literally didn't know he was alive.
Right. Like there was no way it made something as simple as people forever have been like, I guess it's a little bit of retconning, but people have always been like, if Darth is a Sith title, why would he call him Darth? Like a first name in A New Hope. And here, this paid it off in a really nice way because it was like, fine, so long. It's like, oh, I really want to, I really, really, really want to be, I really want to be a police officer. And it's like, all right, fine, bye, officer. Like he uses it, not as a first name, but he uses it as a derogatory title to be like, fine, way to go, captain. You wanted to be a pirate captain so badly. Fine. So long, captain. So long, lawyer. Like whatever, that title could have been anything.
Well, he even says, then my friend really is dead.
Well, so that actually brings up a really interesting point that I wanted to ask you guys about. We always talk about, the famous George Lucas quote from the making of Phantom Menace, where he talks about, throughout the saga, it rhymes, quote unquote, it rhymes, and you get moments that mirror each other. There are two very distinct rhyming moments in the duel, and I don't know how I feel about them. One of them is, as you mentioned earlier, Brian, there is the mirror moment where Obi-Wan slices open Vader's mask and reveals half his face, which is identical to what happens when he duels Ahsoka in Rebels, and she cuts off the other side of the helmet.
Opposite side.
Which,
I like that.
One, yep. I also got to say, like, Mandalorian armor ain't what it used to be if you can just cut that helmet like that. Anyway, jokes aside. So, one, I'm curious how you guys feel about the fact that, yes, I mean, we needed to see Anakin's face under there, but they basically did the same thing that they did in Rebels. The other one, which is really interesting, is there is a third, they rhyme it twice in later stuff. So you just mentioned it, Mark. Then my friend is truly dead. Ahsoka says the same thing to him in Rebels when she says, then my master is truly dead. And Luke says it again on Endor in Return of the Jedi, then my father is truly dead.
Mm-hmm.
Are we overdoing it with the truly deads? And was it a cop-out that we had the same vulnerability and same facial slice, as cool as it was to see him? And the performance is brilliant, and I'm not upset that they did it. But I just wonder, like, are we doing too many callbacks with this in terms of, you had one line that is now repeated by two other characters who are trying to bring Anakin back from the dark side, and you've got a Rebels there's been a couple times in the Obi-Wan series where they've taken things from Rebels and replicated it in live. Well, you've had things from Rebels and from the video games that they've now made live canon through this. So I'll shut up, but I wanted to set it up for you guys.
So two quick points. No, I don't mind it because I love it when lines work their way in and when they're repeated. I've got a bad feeling about this. I like the fact that they've now done that in triplicate. I like it when you have a line or a callback. Listen, man, we geeked out when he said hello there. I love on TikTok that they have it in triplicate, that they show you the hello there to Luke Skywalker, the hello there to General Grievous, and the hello there in this. I like that. So no, when you have those verbal cues or those lines that are just worked in different ways, I enjoy that. The other thing I really enjoyed, I don't know if it was done intentionally, and I want to go. So after this, I just haven't had time to do this, but I want to do some research and see if there was something to the slices being opposited. And that, it's so interesting that the two most important people in his life, one slices one side, and then basically his Padawan slices at one, his master slices at another. I don't know if there's symbolism in that, but the symmetry of it I found to be really cool. And I appreciated the fact that in two separate duels, Vader has essentially been halved.
Well,
And
I'm glad you picked up on that, because the prevailing theory that I've seen from a couple of different analyses has been each of them could have appealed to a part of him, but it was Luke who brought back all of him. So that, the symmetry there and taking opposite sides was, there's a part of him that is pulled by the person who raised him and taught him. There is a part of him that is pulled by the person who he helped to raise and who he helped to train, but it took his son, and for all intents and purposes, it could have been Leia, could have been his daughter, but it took Luke, who had all of the compassion and who was his own flesh and blood, to remind him of who he really was and bring him fully back from the dark side.
yeah, I think there's a lot of there. So I do like that. And I do think that there'll be some like director's notes, or there's going to be stuff that comes out in post-production. And I wouldn't doubt that if we get the making of on Disney Plus, that there's going to be some section of dialogue devoted to this. And there's going to like the director and the producer are going to sit down and say, hey, this is what happened. Much like it was very subtle, the duel that we got between Obi-Wan and Maul, it was very subtle, but then it took like in post-production to say, hey, listen, watch it again with these director's notes. It really gives us such a better appreciation of that fight sequence and that fight scene. I think you're going to get something upon further review that is going to make us appreciate the symmetry of that damage to his helmet. There's a lot of there. So I love it all.
I see that as mirroring, and I'm completely good with that one. For me, it's the is truly dead. Like it's not enough of a common hello there is a very common memeable line. You knew it was coming. You knew the reference. The is truly dead. For me, I could have done without that callback, because as much as I love these movies, it took me until the second time that I heard it to even process what was being said. Like Obi-Wan, the mirroring of Obi-Wan saying, I will do what I must. I love that.
Yeah, but Brian, you don't write that off as that's just an Obi-Wanism, that he's using the same vernacular and the same jargon later on in life when he's explaining that scenario again to Luke?
He doesn't say it. It's Ahsoka and Luke who do.
Ahsoka says it once, Luke says it another time, and then Obi-Wan says it. So nobody repeats it. Like hello there comes from the same character on 3 different occasions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
So the others are it's too much of the same thing being said to the same character, which, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't care. I will do what I must. Again, Obi-Wan says it both times. It's part of how it goes. It's the Mark Valentine faith, trust, and pixie dust, if you will. Yeah. But going from there, like, I think the symmetry of Ahsoka and Obi-Wan both cutting the helmet, again, as much as every Star Wars fan should see this season 2 finale of Rebels, they have not. So taking something that was absolutely brilliant and then bringing it a new spin, I'm completely good with it. For me, it was completely taking all of Jedi Fallen Order and just telling it again in episode 4 is what I found to not be mirroring. I found it to be just completely hijacked the story. But
I love that other moment that you pointed out with the I will do what I must. There's a subtle difference in that moment that I think is so telling about where these characters are, because, it's, Vader says to him, have you come here to destroy me, Obi-Wan? And Obi-Wan says, I will do what I must. And Vader's response is, then you will die.
Instead of you
will try. So it shows that much further how much more he's just amped up in terms of where he is as a character, that it's gone from, give it a go. But it's ultimately, now this time, like, step up. I'm going to kill you.
But not to keep harping on, we talked about it quite a bit last week. You already talked about it once today. Disney has done everything right by the character of Darth Vader, and that continues to go. They have not missed with Darth Vader, in my opinion. And Mark, you weren't here for that conversation last week, so I'd love to get your thoughts on if you agree with Mike and I in that circumstance, because you can see every single decision that Vader is making makes perfect sense. He's cocky enough to think, oh, I just piled all these rocks on him. He's definitely dead. Like, I'm not going to even finish my work. I'm not going to go back and check my answers because I know I finished it. Everything about Vader and the way he acts makes perfect sense. He doesn't think logically. He doesn't follow the entire path of rebels. He follows the one guy that he desperately wants. And he wants to continue going after him until the Emperor basically says, hey, don't do that. Like, let's just go for the next 9 years and eventually you're going to find him on the Death Star. But like the Emperor basically tells him, hey, don't continue looking for this one person. And he finally just kind of stops because the Emperor wants him to. But everything they do around Vader makes perfect sense with how strong he is in the Force. Everything that he does makes a ton of sense. You don't even have to be able to see his face to know what he's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that we've gotten from Darth Vader, whether it be in Rebels or in Rogue One, it's just added to the character. I think Disney's done a really good job with the character of Darth Vader, and I think that they've done him a great service. I've come around, and again, we've had this discussion in other episodes. Like I even the stuff that I didn't originally think I liked, as canon has started to develop, and we've gotten some ancillary works that kind of support the Last Jedi and support the Skywalker saga. I've really come around on it. Like the entire thing, not just the Last Jedi. I enjoy that trilogy as a work of art. I really think that it's pretty fascinating. I want to see continued stories, and there's been a collective moan in the Star Wars community that they don't want to see Rey come back. I want to see more of these stories. I'm going to go out and here's the hot take of the episode, guys. I don't think that Kathleen Kennedy is doing a bad job. I know that that's going to put me at odds with a lot of people, but I think that Kathleen Kennedy is doing a really good job. I think that she's also recognized that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and other people giving her, this advice and writing these stories is valuable. And I think that she's become a really good team builder in the last few years. I can't say, and I hear the term Disney Star Wars thrown around a lot on YouTube and in the community. I have no problem with Disney Star Wars, because here's the thing. With Disney being at the helm of Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, we're getting more Star Wars. We're getting more now than we ever have. Mike's in my life, we waited for so long to be here, and now we're here. It's like the people who spend all winter saying how cold it is, and then the first week of hot go, it's too hot. You just spent the last 6 months complaining about how cold it was, and now you finally have heat, and you're now going to complain about how hot it is. We don't get to do both. You don't get to complain about how there wasn't any Star Wars, and now you're getting Star Wars, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, it's not good, Star Wars. Listen, this is what you wanted. You wanted a continuation of the story. And so to circle back, like the continuation of what Disney's doing with Darth Vader's story. I think they're doing a tremendous job with the Skywalker saga and filling in these gaps and these pieces. I agree with Brian. You've said this before. You would like to see some stories and some narratives outside of the Skywalker legacy. I don't disagree with that. But for people who grew up with this canon and with this lore, it's really great to see some of these pieces of history being filled in for us fans of 4 decades.
So I want to go back for a quick second on something you guys just touched on, because it is low-key one of my maybe favorite 3 moments in the entire finale, which is the moment at which Darth Vader decides to pursue the escape craft with Obi-Wan and let the path go away. And it is the absolute look of disgust on the face of the Grand Inquisitor when Vader is like, no, he's like, it is just one Jedi. He's like, he is not any Jedi. And it's just this look of like, whatever, Darth. Like, it's that, again, goes back to Rupert Friend being amazing. And it would have been great to have more screen time from him in this series. He's brilliant. Like, he is like the only person in the galaxy who can give Darth Vader side eye and not get his head cut off.
Yeah,
like,
it really feels like this is a character introduction for the general audience, because I can't imagine he's done.
No,
I sure hope you're right, because like anyone else who gives anybody else who Darth Vader senses getting side eye is getting choked out.
I thought
Visitor's just like, whatever, Darth.
I thought for a minute he was going to say, you committed one of the 3 classic blunders. First, never start a land war in Asia. Second, only lesser known, do not let the path get away.
Which is clearly why we can't follow the ship to the
left. Don't start a land war. Only slightly lesser well known as this.
Never go against the Sicilian when death is on the line.
Dude, you bring up something brilliant, man. We need Wallace Shawn in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, we need Wallace Shawn.
Where is Wallace? Universe. So Wallace Shawn is in Star Trek. He plays the Grand Nagus, which is the leader of the Ferengi aliens on Deep Space Nine, and he's brilliant. Plays this giant-headed, big-eared, hairy-eared thing,
yeah.
And he's amazing.
Yep.
Star Wars gods, if you are listening to us, we need Wallace Shawn before he retires or passes on within the Star Wars galaxy.
For those playing at home, anyone who had Princess Bride, you may have a bingo.
As you wish.
As you wish.
Anybody want a peanut? So
we've got to talk about Reva and Luke. We have like 13 minutes.
Talk about Reva.
Well, I say we just go past the hour, Marcus. We need to talk about Leia too.
Well, we got time. We got plenty of time left. So let's go to Reva. So, as you guys mentioned, the entire episode was, the A plot was the A plot and the B plot. The A plot was that Obi-Wan and Vader were going for round 3 on the nameless rocky landscape, and Reva gets back to Tatooine and asks for Owen. Somebody in the town tips Owen off when he has taken Luke into town, and we hear that Luke has already been wrecking the family speeder. And so that gives time for Owen and Beru, who, Beru's a doomsday prepper.
Terrible shot.
Well, yeah, I think that, we always talk about Space PETA being really angry. Like, is the plant community going to be mad at the plant sacrifices that Owen made? Like he's like, I can't shoot you, so I'm gonna throw plants at you,
dude.
It's a ficus, bitch. Like, there's like, what is?
I had Dumb and Dumber in my head. Harry, you're a terrible shot. Like,
dude, eat succulent Sith. Like, it's like, what are you doing?
It was shot you in the face.
It was pretty bad. Dude.
It was so they get ready, and as you alluded to, Brian, like, Beru's a badass. Like, Beru is great. Like, Owen is like, we got to pack up and run, and Beru's like, yo, you knock on my door, you best be ready to see a blaster in your face.
He's got like the sawed off.
Well, and we've all been laughing about the incredible sass power of Owen with his whole like he trained his father, like sassing Obi-Wan. Beru gives it to him even worse. He's like, well, Obi-Wan's gone, and she's like, well, whose fault is that?
She really did. She gave it.
No wonder Owen's such a grump. Beru is clearly running that house.
All that mattered to me was Grant Feely, the young actor that plays Luke Skywalker, walks with his left hand on his hip and his right hand swinging like he's rowing a boat, man. He has the total Luke Skywalker walk down. That's all that I cared about. But they did a good job at Luke being never aware of exactly who was coming after him, never seeing a lightsaber. Like, they had to do a lot of things. Yeah, they said it was the Tuskens, and he clearly figured out that wasn't true. But he never saw a lightsaber, because anytime the lightsaber came out, he was unconscious. Like, they made sure to stick to that canon as well, of Luke being basically unaware of anything going on around him. I mean, it worked. I just, one, how did Reva get there? I don't understand that. I'm kind of glad we didn't spend that time, I suppose, but
that's why it took so long.
It goes back to Bail Organa being completely just a doofus in the last episode, but I was not interested in really anything happening on Tatooine. I do feel like we're going to get more Reva somehow, some way, and I wouldn't say no to it. But now she's no longer an Inquisitor. I don't know how we see her. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect, but I do expect to get more of her. Maybe she's going to help Cassian. Maybe she's going to pop up somehow that way. I really don't know the answer there. I feel like we're not done with her, but I just was not invested in this particular episode.
I like her. I thought Moses Ingram was good. The most compelling part of this entire scene was when she finally corners Luke and he's unconscious and she cannot deliver the death stroke and the flashback and her going back to the temple and realizing, like, if I do this, I basically will become what I have sought to destroy for all of these years. I liked that moment. The payoff for her was good. The only problem that I had with all of this, here's the only thing. It was really hard to get invested in it emotionally because you know that Owen lives, you know that Beru lives, you know that Luke is going to live. And Mike, you talk about this constantly, and I love it when you bring this up, is the issue of stakes. There was not a lot of stakes in that second B storyline.
But were there stakes in the A storyline though? If we're gonna say that.
There, well, yes and no. Yes and no, because there's no stakes in the truest sense of, we know that both of these men are going to live, but
right.
We're invested in the storyline of how do we get to point B.
They were emotional stakes.
I'm invested in, see now where I may not have been fully invested in Reva, I now am. I love where they're going to go with her. If you were to say to me, Mark, would you tune in for a spinoff with this character? Absolutely. Because now they've given me something to care about with her. But the thing is I didn't want the fight sequence to be interrupted with this B storyline, not because of her, and people are getting like really toxic within it. It's like, well, why are you not? Listen, we know that Luke's going to get away. It's great the way that they worked it out. I just wish they hadn't taken half of the episode and detracted from the main attraction so much. I like what they did. I want to see her again. I loved her character. It was a great payoff for her in that moment. I even like how she hand delivers Luke back to the Lars homestead. That interaction between her and Obi-Wan was amazing, and her throwing the lightsaber into the sand and him saying, "You're free, both of us are." That was great. Amazing television right there. But to me, there was just no stakes in this entire action sequence to where it did, Mike, become somewhat laughable for me. Like him throwing a plan at her, him just being a horrible shot at point blank range. I'm like, this is a little ridiculous at this point. Just whatever we're going to do. Yeah, whatever we're going to do, just do it.
Why didn't she kill him? Like, if she's that ruthless, then
I don't
think she was within lightsaber distance of everybody. Like, she could have thrown them with the Force. She could have struck them down with a lightsaber. Like, I didn't hate it, but again, anytime you end up having to ask questions about something in a narrative, it makes it problematic. So,
sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, they just didn't connect the puzzle piece for me of what she thought her plan was. Like,
I don't think she had a good plan. I just think that was
Vader thought or knew Luke existed and was going to somehow get her revenge on Vader by killing his kid. Like, we talked about the logic leap that we had to make of all of a sudden she figured out that these kids are Vader's, which I think still is the case. But I don't know what her plan was, and it was never communicated as to what her plan was.
Yeah,
my guess was always that she was gonna kill him and use it to break his heart. Either as I said last week, kidnap him and hold him hostage. To get Vader to be compromised, or kill him just to be able to take revenge on him for the pain that he had caused.
Little does she know, she would have just doomed the entire galaxy for the rest of time if she'd have just killed Luke at that point.
Yeah, little details.
I think the show did a really nice job of putting an emotional bow tie on everything, whether it be Reva's story and then like we've already said, like Leia. I think the last 3 scenes did a really nice job of creating emotional closure, not just for Obi Wan Kenobi, but for us as audience members.
Yeah, I liked Reva's, like we talked last week about whether she was going to have a redemption, as Star Wars loves to have. I actually liked her redemption. I liked that she questioned it. It wasn't an easy one that got there. I thought that she paid off in a really cool way. I liked, you guys mentioned earlier the resolution with Vader. I liked that Vader actually had an arc through this series.
Mhm.
It's paid off in the fact that the Emperor says, "Are your feelings clear, Lord Vader?" And it's very clear that he's like, the same as Obi-Wan has had his change over time. There's no ambiguity in terms of what Vader thinks anymore. He's like, next time I see Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm gonna run him through, and he does. Like that scene, I thought had a lot of meaning. It wasn't just a cheap cameo from the Emperor. I thought that was a very meaningful 90 seconds of film.
Style wise, I just want to go on record and say this. I've had a change of heart. You know that fan fiction duel on the Death Star that they've recut and reshot the scenes.
Scene 38, yeah.
Yeah. I don't want that anymore. I don't want that.
Funny, I had a similar thought. About that.
I don't want that anymore because now seeing them aged and decrepit and seeing them fight at that next stage of their life, it makes a lot more sense. It's what we need. I want slower. I like the way that the battle originally played out, and I don't want that doctored scene anymore. I want it just the way that it was given to us, and I want the way that it was shot. Don't ever touch that scene because it fits. It fits the development and the aging of these characters just perfectly.
So what about the resolution of Leia? So Leia escapes with the path. They get her back to Alderaan. She had given Lola to Obi-Wan, so Obi-Wan kind of risks everything to reveal himself on in broad daylight on Alderaan, but he flies back and returns Lola to Leia. How did you feel about the full resolution with them? And really quickly, I got to point out, it was very consistent in terms of Leia's character in that she always goes to hug the wrong character first. Obi-Wan saves her life, and she goes for Lola. The same as Chewie gets back after the death of Han, and she goes to run and hug Rey. She makes terrible emotional decisions, consistent from the age of 10 to the age of 60.
I don't have a lot to say. Here's all I have to say about Leia. It's great to see that this event and story is what cements her in, and this is what gives her the resolve to become the leader and the rebel that she is. It was great to see the seeds of rebellion planted in this young 10-year-old girl. Great payoff. That's all I have to say about Leia. Brian, I will defer the rest of my time. I yield to Brian Lee.
Well, we talked about how there really wasn't a lot of character development, and I still feel that's the case. Mike, we talked that we had convinced ourselves that they were headed to Tatooine. We were really worried about that. We're glad that didn't happen. I legitimately laughed out loud every time I watched the episode when he gives her the holster and she says that it's empty. And he says, "Of course I'm not going to give you a blaster. You're 10 years old." Like, I thought that was brilliant. I think when Leia says Lola makes everybody feel better, makes them feel less scared, and Obi-Wan's response is, maybe I should have her too. Like, I think all that worked really well. I can't believe they didn't tie it in somehow. And I don't understand. And I don't know if I even wanted them to. The hologram makes no sense. She's addressing somebody that she is pretending like she's never met before. And they didn't give it a coded message. They didn't really give it anything. It says, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. You serve with my father in the Clone Wars. There's no indication that this person has ever met Obi-Wan Kenobi before. And I'm surprised that there wasn't any sort of connection to that hologram in any reference whatsoever.
I mean,
I really thought there
There-
was going to be a "You're my only hope" somehow, some way.
I did too.
That call
but
out. I'm just
all-
shocked they didn't do it.
All I can put out there is that, maybe, and it's a stretch. It's, again, we shouldn't have to ask these questions or make these things up. But did she not want to somehow wrongfully implicate
Right.
herself or her father in putting it out there? Did she feel like she needed to be much more formal in putting this out there in case it got into the wrong hands or it got out of the way, and it wasn't like, as stupidly blatant as when her father, who clearly doesn't understand how voicemail works, left evidence of sedition, and the most, said the quiet part loud, leaving voicemail for Obi-Wan. So
it was so cryptic because the other one wasn't cryptic. I'll take.
yeah,
I'll just run with that.
It's not the greatest thing in the world, but
it can't be something they didn't think of. I was just surprised that they didn't even try.
I would have liked it. I was hoping, but we don't get everything right.
Well, gentlemen, did you like probably the biggest cameo of the entire series outside of Leia? How did you feel about a very ghostly Qui-Gon Jinn, played once again by Liam Neeson, making his appearance before we bid a fond farewell to Obi-Wan into Beggar's Canyon?
Well, I mean, I thought it was great. At least we got it. I was worried that maybe we weren't going to get it after he didn't appear at the beginning of the episode. Like, it was the after the fact. I kind of liked that he didn't, Mark, you and I kept talking about how it was going to be like the Mick moment. Sorry, as my Chewbacca jumped on my lap about 3 minutes ago, and so he's hanging out here. I liked it. I also think that it was consistent with canon in that his hair looked terrible. It looked just as fake now as it did in the prequels. I liked that he gave him some sass mouth. I enjoyed that it was, you just, what took you so long was the first thing he said. I thought that was pretty wonderful. I don't know, Brian, did you like
well, it's also
Qui-Gon?
Yeah, it's also the way to set up what Obi-Wan's going to be up to for the next 9 years. It puts a bow on this story and does not mean we need a season 2. I don't believe the rumors of a season 2 to be valid, especially when it comes to Vader has now decided he's going to stop hunting and Obi-Wan's going to go and do his thing. It sets up who Obi-Wan is going to become the next time we see him. And everything and how he becomes a Force ghost at the end of A New Hope and everything else that's going to come from there. I think it puts a nice bow on where the character goes from here without us having to tell the story.
Agreed, gentlemen. I'm not going to labor the point. It's been said. This is what sets up everything. We're not going to get a season 2. This was a series finale. You're going to get some characters that come out of this that are going to appear in other projects. But as far as the story of Obi Wan Kenobi goes, I'm pretty certain that it's over. That's it.
And I'm good with that. I also, they very clearly telegraphed, we're going to get Roken back somehow. So O'Shea Jackson Jr., with his, you're people follow you, you mustn't give up, in leading people. And he's like, oh, I'm just getting started. And I'm like, and there we go. Here comes the Roken appearance in Andor, or
he'll be in Andor. O'Shea, he'll be in Andor.
Yeah, that's what
I would be
next to.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he's not in Andor.
I shared it with you guys. I loved, he's been getting some rough treatment from the fanhood, yeah. Or somebody tweeted out about his acting abilities, his acting chops not being that strong, and his simple tweet reply was, "My bank account would beg to differ."
Good for him, man.
I like him. I think Straight Outta Compton's awesome. I love his dad.
I agree.
I think O'Shea Jackson Jr. can act his butt off. I do not think that was put on display from either the direction or the character or whatever. I do not believe that was put on display in this series. I think we're gonna get more, and I think it's gonna be.
Could have done more.
But let's be honest. what was he given to do in this series?
Exactly. He was given nothing.
He was given nothing.
He was there to be introduced.
That was it. He was
If he had like the Tala role, I think he would have been able to do a lot more with it. But there's something interesting about, him, if he's kind of the leader of the path, it'd be neat to see him showing up and showing the path interwoven with the rebellion throughout Andor. I mean, like, he doesn't even have to be a series regular. It could just be like every once in a while you get a tie-in with the path, and it's like, look, in order for the rebellion to get something done, we need you to ferry this Jedi from here, or this Force-sensitive person from here to there. Oh, then you got to go talk to Roken.
Yeah.
So we're only probably about 8 weeks away from Andor then, right? Do we have an actual air date for Andor, or do we just know that it's August?
August 31st.
So,
and then when is Bad Batch 2, gentlemen?
September 28th.
All right, so we're going to be talking a lot of Star Wars in the coming weeks.
We've got a lot to talk about in the coming weeks, and so there's also new Star Wars content this summer. There's Star Wars Lego Vacation or Lego Holiday, right?
Summer Vacation. Yeah, I think that's July 5th, I think.
Well, guys, we're also halfway to the holidays. Do you think maybe we revisit the Star Wars Christmas special, Brian?
I accidentally seismic charged the Wilhelm scream, but I'm going to keep it.
That was amazing. I was like,
that was.
Did you just combine the two sounds?
Like, that's epic.
That's amazing. What an incredible smell you've discovered.
This is so wizard, Andy.
Brilliant. And so we will continue to broadcast in the interim, though. We've got lots to cover, lots of things we still haven't done that we've talked about from past episodes. I think now that we've got a lot of really great connective tissue that's come out of Kenobi, I think it'll be fun to go back and revisit some of the things that we've seen in the past and see how they play up again now. So, final thoughts on the limited event Obi Wan Kenobi, Ryan?
Am I happy it exists? Yes. Is it as good as The Mandalorian? Absolutely not.
I will say I agree with that, and let's just carbon copy that exact statement as how I feel. It's slightly behind The Mandalorian, but I did enjoy it, and way more than the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. There's a lot of stuff that I really, truly loved and connected with on the good Star Wars emotional level. I think based on the stuff that I really love from it, it makes me wonder if maybe having done an Obi-Wan movie rather than a limited series and kind of putting it all together might have done it well. Sorry for anybody who's viewing this on YouTube. As you can tell, my Ewok of a dog, Archie, has decided that because I was away all day that he wants to be a part of the episode.
Smiling at the camera.
Wave, Archie, wave. He's like, no, I refuse. I will rewatch a lot of this series. I will especially rewatch all of the Obi-Wan Vader material. Like, that alone, helping to connect the dots for all of the future saga material, I think was just brilliant and awesome. And I'm stoked for Andor. I feel like, again, now that we have the path is a whole new narrative development in the galaxy. I think that's really interesting. Seeing Alderaan and what Bail and his wife are up to, and now that there's Leia there, who knows if we see Leia again? She's great. She's adorable. She's excellent. She's an excellent actor. Be interesting to see.
Do we see Carrie Fisher's daughter as a younger Leia?
I don't think so, because she's already her own character in the sequels.
True.
But we will do as we have a little bit more information and we get in there in August. We'll have an Andor preview, and we can certainly make guesses. So one of our listeners, my sister's been listening. She said I just binged all of the Obi-Wan episodes, and she was like, I not only enjoyed you guys talking about things and hearing what you guys got well, she was like, I also enjoyed seeing everything that you got wrong. So I'm sure that we will make lots of conjectures.
Thanks, Bex.
Yeah, we'll conjecture about things that'll happen in Andor and then in Bad Batch season 2, and inevitably we will make some wrong guesses. But it's fun to write things ourselves a bit, right?
As a fan of The Simpsons, Becky, to me, that's just a big ha ha.
I'm just glad we were wrong about the finale.
Oh my god, I'm so glad that
glad.
Leia didn't end up on Tatooine.
Yep.
That would have just been throw something at the television style.
Obi Wan Kenobi, meet Anakin Skywalker.
Obi Wan Kenobi, meet my fist through the television screen.
Qui-Gon should have apologized for that whole Anakin thing. That's what his Force Ghost should have done.
Yeah.
Dude, this was so my fault.
Yeah, no, that's where he shows up and he's like, "I'm sorry, Obi-Wan,
My
for
bad.
all of it." Well, that's what. Yeah, it's like, so Obi-Wan is crying and says, I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it." And Qui-Gon magically appears behind. And he's like, "Me too."
I feel like
my bad, y'all.
I feel like Qui-Gon should have been like, so how you been? What's been going on?
FYI, that Maul guy's still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I've been blue for the last 20 years. You're not going to believe the stuff I've seen over here. Did you know that Palpatine is the Emperor?
And somehow he returned.
So, and guess what? 35 years from now, somehow he'll return.
The dead speak. Oh, gentlemen,
On
I
that
always
note,
love this show.
Well, thank you guys, as always, for getting together to talk Star Wars. Always a pleasure. Everyone who's tuned in, watching and listening, thank you for joining us in our galaxy far, far away. Again, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Join us again in 2 weeks when we're back with something totally new and different, because we won't have Obi-Wan anymore. And start counting down the days as we are to the premiere of Andor this August. And so with that, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.